Of the mimer from last week, Vayu Chayesara Tavshin Yud Beis, and we were speaking about the idea that you had the level of simcha in a way of mortgage, that the simcha b'mortgage is not the simcha b'mortgage can allow for the unikas chitzayim. This is essentially what took place with Chava, and this also took place with Noach. But by Sarah, even though she had the simcha b'mortgage, she was able to bring in the bittel of Kabbalah's oil, even though she was a level of Ban, and Ban is a level of Malchus, it goes down to Biyah. It brought the bittel of Kabbalah's oil even in the mortgage of the Simcha. Before the Chet Hadas, the Simcha was able to be completely without any heritage, without any feeling and awareness and sense of self interfering. But after the Chet Hadas, what we need to do is take the bittel and bring it into the world of mortgage. So now he's going to explain a little bit more about the different levels of the different types of bittul. So we're on the bottom of the 7th page, page 132. We're holding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom of the page towards the end of the line. And to explain this bittul of Kabbalah soil that comes into even the avodah of mortgage, that ensures that we shouldn't have the problem of the simcha should be a yinik l'chitzayim. So he says the difference between the higher level of bittul and of awe and the lower level of bittul and awe. The yirei lo b'chinas bittul mitzias. The higher level of yira is that the person is completely bottled. There's no mitzias whatsoever. So there's no issue of being concerned about mortgage at all. There is no mortgage. Aval yiratata b'chinas bitla yesh. Yiratata is that there is a yesh, a bitl of yesh. What does that mean? Shu yesh ala shu bottle. There is a yesh. Since there is a yesh, the only thing is that this yesh is bottled to the Eibishter. It's a bitl in a state of mortgage. In the lower year itself, there are two levels of this lower year. Whether it does this awe and Kabbalah's oil come because of his comprehension of Hashem, or does this come totally because he accepts the Eibishter Kabbalah's oil? The Oz, when there's a Kabbalah's oil as the underlying factor of Yirat Atah, it's not based on his intellectual capacity. Though it's a lower Yira, it's not the higher level of awe, and it's a level of Bitla Yesh, that's a level of a Mitzvah still. So therefore you could be concerned about mortgage and allowing for Yinikas Chitzayim and so on. Mikal Mokim who a bitl legamri the Kabbalah's oil, is in the total state of bitl of accepting the yoke. Shuam Shachas ha bitl the Kabbalah's oil gam bebchinas metzias. He's drawing down this bitl of Kabbalah's oil also in the metzias, like we said before, the bitl into the mortgage. This is the idea that we say that Yira Ilah is actually Meir and shines into Yira Tata. The Rebbe a lot of times says this concerning the relationship between Elul and Rosh Hashanah, or Nasarsi Metshuva is Yira Ilah, El is Yira Tata. The Shofar of Rosh Hashanah is Yira Ilah, the Shofar of El is Yira Tata. But in that Shofar of Yira Tata of El, it shines the Yira Ilah of Tishrei. Based on this, or taking this idea, this is also Masha Sarah Nochsas V'Solchas, that says that Sarah descended and she went up. Literally, she went into Mitzrayim, but spiritually it means she descends. The level of Shem Ban, the level of Malchus, descends into Biyah. The Sari beginas Shem Ban, Viratata beginas Metzias. Sari is the level of Shem Ban, and the lower level of awe, the level where there is an existence. Avol Ayidei, top of 133. Shahoisa im Avram, by being with Avram. And we said earlier in the Maimer that Avram is Aver Ma. He's an Aver of Ma showing on Bittel. His entire idea was Bittel to Rebishter Vanoichi offer V'Efer. So here, being joined with Avram, Hoya Ba Ha'aris Yirei La. So she also had the ray of the higher level of Yira that caused that the lower level of Yira should not be susceptible to any of the issues that happens when it descends into Biyah. Hainu, this means Shemshicha Bittel Gamba avoided the mortgage. She drew down the level of Bittel, also in the Avoida where there was a sense of self. Shaideza Davke Tiknas Chetetzadah, specifically through that Avoida, she elevated and she repaired the sin of the Eitzadas. Why? Because she took what Eitzadas brought into the world and used it in Kedusha. After the sin of the Eitzadas, we're not just turning back the clocks, or else there wouldn't be no Yeridol Tzarech Aliyah. But after the Chet Eitzadas was introduced, that now the Avodah is with a mortgage. Why? Because there has to be the refinement of even the hergish. That's the idea that Adam Rishon was chased out to work the land that he was taken from, meaning the avodas haberurim. So he needs to now be mevarer, this new type of avodah, the avodah of hergish. But you need to be able to counter that as well, to be able to be mevarer. How does this become repaired? Through drawing down the bittul in the avodah of mortgage. The Noach Ratzel Saknas Achet Aidei Hasagas Ashlila Shiba Bittul the Hasaga. Noach wanted to repair the sin of the Eitzadas through a comprehension in the way of a negative. That it's a bittul of the person's comprehension. That's the idea of becoming drunk. That Noach becoming drunk means that his mind is not functioning. So that means spiritually, he wanted to nullify the idea of understanding. So he says that wouldn't help, because once we came into this world, we have to elevate the understanding, not nullify it. The idea is through what Noach did, he couldn't repair what Chava's sin was, that she brought mortgage into the world and into Hasag. Amnam Sarai de Kabbal's oil dafka, specifically Sarah through her acceptance of the yoke of heaven, through bittul agamri. It's a total bittul, it's not an idea about removing the hasagi. It's about permeating everything with bittul. She's able to repair the sin through drawing down the bittul of being, like we said, the servant to the master. Avoida the mortgage, and the avoida of sensing oneself. In that avoida itself, you have this level of the mortgage, of the bittul in the mortgage itself. It says in the second paragraph on the last page, that's what it says. The years of the life of Sarah, which the question is, why after the whole arichas that says Vayu Chayisar Meish Shana Vesm Shana V'Sheva Shanim, does he have to say after that? And it was this is the years of the life of Sarah. In the order of the years, he enumerates it going from above to below. 100 years is the level of Atik and Arich, because 100, as I believe we mentioned earlier in this Maimer, it's 10 times 10. It's the level having to do with Kesser in general. 20 years is the way Chachma Bina, each one of them is Kol from 10. With the 7 years corresponds to Zer Ampin and Malchus, the 7 Midas. Shekol zehu seder asfiris atzma. This is the order of the spheres themselves. This is still in the world of Atzilus, like Gur Chara. It's all part of going in the order Malmailamata, but in the world of holiness. Since the intention and purpose is that the avodah should be dafke in the sense of that it is felt where there is an existence, where there is a world, not just in Atzilus. For this, he says, the years of the life of Sarah. Sarah is a level of Shem Ban, level of Malchus, which goes down into Biyah. So the years of the life of Sarah is not the same things that we were talking about, Meya Shana, Esron Shana, Sheva Shanim. That's in the spheres of Atzilus. Shnei Chayei Sarah is going through Inyan Oilmas Biyah. It's going on the worlds of Bria Yitzir Asiyah. The Bria, he has Cholos HaMetzias. Bria is the beginning of all existence. Amnum Bezeh Gufim, but in this itself, Hainu Gamba Ilmas Biyah, Himshicha HaBittel the Kabbalas oil. She drew down the bittel of accepting the yoke of heaven. The idea, Amshach HaBittel Kabbalas oil, through drawing down that bittel, like we said, the servant that rejoices in the joy of his master. Dafke ba'avodah the morgish in the avodah of morgish, which is the worlds of Bri Yitzir Asiyah. So nasa tikkun chet etz hadas, through that becomes repairing of the sin of the etz hadas. V'zeu gamkin inyan v'gilu barada. This is also what we spoke about earlier, that the rejoicing has to be done with trembling. There has to be joy because that is the primary avodah, like we said before, since Hashem wants to have a home down here below, and the only way you can have a home down here below is only when you connect with Hashem's essence. Intellectual understanding doesn't connect with Hashem's essence. It's only joy and delight that connects with Hashem's essence. So therefore, it's primary. It's not just a hidur mitzvah, like he said earlier in the Maimer. It's a core part of the person's service. But the problem is that because of the chet etz hadas, it brought about that this primary avodah of simcha has the problem of it being b'morgish. So what do? You can't get rid of the baby with the bathwater. You can't get rid of the simcha, but you have the problem of morgish. So therefore, you need to have amnum bezeh gufa tzricha ra'ada. You need to have the rejoicing with the trembling. You need the trembling. What does that mean? The trembling, bushiyeh bezeh habitl kabal soil. You have the simcha, but you have the discipline of the bitl of kabal soil. The idea is that dafkin nasa tikkun chet etz hadas, specifically through this becomes the repair and uplifting of the sin of the etz hadas. The Noach Rotzel Sakin Chet Etz Hadas Idea Sagus Hashlil. Like we said before, Noach wanted to repair the sin of the Etz Hadas through a negative type of understanding. In other words, being mevatel the seichel, negating the seichel, just like drunkenness means that the mind gets lost. The main repair of this is through the avodah of Kabbalah soil. And like we mentioned yesterday, last time, like for example, a servant that's rejoicing from the fact that the master is delighting in his service. It's an idea of accepting the yoke. It's not his own ego, because when it's his own ego enjoying it, there can be a problem. He says, a servant desires or chooses or would like to be free. The only thing is, why does he forego that freedom? It has nothing to do with intellect. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's Kabbalah soil. In other words, his nature is he would like to be free. He would not want to be involved in serving his master. He puts himself aside. He has Kabbalah soil and he serves his master. So when his bittul is such that he puts himself aside, the simcha is under control, and you don't have to worry about klippus nursing from this. and because of his Kabbalah's oil, he has joy, because he rejoices in the fact that his master is joyous and delighting. The Ozdavkin Nasa Tikkun, that's only when it becomes the Tikkun of the Chet Etzadas. So Inyan Shnei Chaye Sora, that's the conclusion that it says the years of the life of Sora, she mshicha bitl Kabbalah soil gam bebya inyan ahergish. She drew down the bitl of Kabbalah soil. Osam bri yitzirasiyah, the idea of where there is a sense of self. Last paragraph in Ideis Ashatorim Va'eres Bepratis Kolam Adregis the Kufshan Chulu, through the Torah, explaining in detail all the levels. There's 100 years, and then the 20 years, and the 7 years, and then Shnei Chaye Sora, indicating Shagam Bazeim Shicha Bittel. Also in Biyah, it wasn't just the Bittel in Atzilus in all those levels, but also in Shnei Chaye Sora, also in Biyah there was the Bittel. So this, the Torah empowers us as well. Through this, every single person has this power also in the time of Golus. Golus is just like Adam Rishon was kicked out of Gan Eden. We are living through that very same thing. It's brought down the destruction. The Beis Hamikdash is similar to the Adam and Chava being kicked out of Gan Eden because they tzadas. So, how can one do so? So just like Sarah, after Adam and Rishon was kicked out of Gan Eden, she was able to bring the bittul or the simcha into the mortgage. The same thing, we are able to do so. But what was Sarah's capability to do so? So we said before, because she was connected to Avraham. Still and all through being bound up with Avraham. Look to the rock where you were chiseled out from, and the where you were chopped, where you were also like chiseled out or dug out from. So even in the time of exile, that every person knows about themselves what their level is and how they are not at the greatest of levels, but they look to their source. In other words, they seek empowerment from their source. To Avram, your father, and Sarah, who gave birth to you. So they are able to, just like Avram was able to do this for Sarah, the same thing, Avram and Sarah are able to empower us. Through that, we're able to draw down the bittul also in the time of Golus. That's what it should be, in a way that it should be the rejoicing in trembling. Like you should have both things. You should have the simcha, but in the way of bittul, the simcha tzarech liyah, like we said before, we must have simcha because that's from the core and primary parts of the avodah. By day, simcha davki on shachas ha'atzmus, only through simcha does one draw down Hashem's very essence. And that's why we explained simcha is primary. But the external ones, the clippers should not nurse from this. We need to draw down in this the bittul of the acceptance of the yoke of heaven. Through that comes about the idea of a home down here below. That's the drawing down of the essence of the Ein Sof. So this mimer is a little bit, if you will, it deals with not such common topics. A lot of times Chassidus has very common topics. It talks about Mimal Kalam, it talks about Soiv Kalam, it talks about Oiris and Kalim, Atzilus and Biyah. Here he talks about Simcha, which even Simcha is not such a common topic. Then he talks about the idea of mortgage, that one is aware of themselves, which is also very fine line, the sense of self that he's talking about over here. And then he talks about something which is like, again, not that commonly discussed, the simcha that has to be manifested even in the mortgage. So maybe let's take a moment and perhaps review some of the points that he made over here in the Maimer, just not to lose track of what is going on over here. First of all, there's the Zohar. He says over here in the Maimer, he talks about the Zohar that seems to connect the three events with Chava, Noach, and Sarah, even though in the original issue of the Zohar, it wasn't even a concern about Noach. It was asking about why Sarah was an exception, that all the women are not mentioned, their lives and their past, in other words, how many years they live and their passing, and so on. So Noach was not even part of the equation. But the Maimer is going to explain that essentially these are three stages in and following and having to do with the Chet Eitzadas. And of course, this is all because the Zohar also wants to know, or also Bechlal want to know, what is the idea of Shnei Chai Sarah? What does it have to do with the years of the life of Sarah? What's that concept about? That he finally explains, that after enumerating all the different levels that he talks about, there is the Meya Shana, the Esron Shana, the Sheva Shanim, which goes on the different levels of Keser and Chachma Bina and Midas. He again says Shnei Chai Sarah, because we're talking about, so again, we're talking about a continuation of a certain avodah. We're going through an issue of a certain avodah, and that avodah has a certain continuation in trying in a progression, and then the ultimate level is expressed in the idea of Shnei Chai Yisrael. So to be able to explain that, he explained why serving Hashem b'simcha is crucial, and he brought proofs that it's crucial and vital, and the Arizal, and Tachs Levad, Tzvayel Kakam Simcha V'tuv Levav. But the reason that he explained is an amazing thing, because only with simcha and the part of doing a mitzvah with simcha and our avodas Hashem and our davening with simcha, that is where we truly connect with Hashem. Our connection is not so much with the intellect. The intellect is only a step for us to enable us to be able to reach the simcha. So our in meditation by davening, our contemplation by davening, is to reach that level of simcha. Why is that so crucial? Because Hashem wants to have a dir b'tachtonim. Hashem wants to have a home down here below. And because he wants to have a home down here below, he needs, the idea of a home means that his very essence is there. He's there in his full sense of his being. Intellect is limited and can only grasp a limited aspect of Hashem, so therefore it's impossible to have Hashem himself with our intellect, but with our delight and joy, which which connects and is an extension of Hashem's delight, which is infinite. That's how we draw down Hashem down here. So that's why Simcha is so crucial and so vital to avodas Hashem. Now, does one have true Simcha? So he explained the very famous word that you must have humility. If you think that you are owed things, if you think that everything you have earned by your own work, so then you can't be really joyous for anything you have. But if you realize that all the qualities and advantages that you have are really gifts that you have from Hashem, so then these qualities and these things are something that you're overjoyed about, and everything that you get from Hashem you're overjoyed about, because it's not your doing. And if something Hashem goes wrong, you don't feel like I'm owed something. Things are ruined. Things are not working. Why don't I have it? Why don't I get this? And this is why humility brings a person to more simcha. But when a person, that was all the normal way how the world was originally created. But through the Chet Eitzadas, that brought an awareness of self, a feeling of self, So then that undermined everything. I heard yesterday a word, somebody said that humility does not mean thinking less of yourself, but it means thinking of yourself less. So the idea is that when I am brought into the equation and I'm busy thinking about myself, so then it's an interference with simcha. So that was the problem with the Chet Eitzadas, that it brought that sense of self and that awareness of self as something separate. And that would ultimately cause that the simcha should be done in a way that it could come out from that yinika for the klippus. And for that we explained that we need to have learn the lesson from Sarah. Sarah had a level of bittul, brought down the mortgage, and that we said that's like a servant that has kabbalas oil, and because of their acceptance of the yoke of their master, their joy is their master's joy. They are delighting in their master's delight. So therefore, it's not about their own ego, it's actually about subsuming themselves to their master, so their entire joy is their master's joy. And that has to do with why Sarah fixed up the sin of the Eitzadas of Chava, and that's why she was able to bring bittul on a way of mortgage, and that even in the mortgage she was in a state of bittul and simcha, and that was through her connection to Avram. And the same thing by us, our connection to Avram and Sarah, we can have that as well.